we're under enormous pressure because if you lose, Scott, you lose your captain who calls the lineouts after 2 minutes. Let's face facts. French referees can be fickle at times. All referees can be fickle at times. McKenzie played really well in the last game. Well, that's the best game I've seen him play, and he started. So he is a contender.
DSPN is brought to you by Novus Glass, proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. The Special Olympics NZ National Summer Games is in Otutahi this December. Across Aotearoa, New Zealand, athletes, clubs, volunteers and families are getting ready, training, supporting each other and celebrating as the flame of hope travels down the country. Text Novus to 3598 to support our athletes. That's NOVUS to 3598 to support our incredible athletes at the Special Olympics in Otutahi, Christchurch this December. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Goal! He's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
It is always a pleasure to have Murray Mexted back on the podcast, DSPN, and we're still talking about Ireland, of course. It was only 24 hours and a smidge ago in Chicago. Lots of talking points about that. Mex, I first of all just want to know, overall, how do you assess that All Blacks performance? What kind of scorecard would you give it in the end?
Well, to answer your question directly, probably about a 6, I would say. But I think it's unfair. It was a very difficult game to rate any team because there was a lot of interference in that game. I mean, you'd have to look at the adjudication more than anything else. It was stop-start throughout the whole thing, which was a shame, really, because it's a promo for the game, isn't it, in Chicago? I went to that match last time. It was 2016, just as a spectator. And I had a bloody good time, too, actually. It's a great city, Chicago. It's good fun. But the thing that I heard during the day was the comments from Americans about what a fantastic idea and an opportunity for them to see a world-class game of rugby. And I thought the game that we've just watched wasn't a world-class game of rugby because there was too much interference. It was stop, start, stop, start. And I was as nervous as hell by half-time. I really was because, you just didn't know whether the game would open up. And if the game opened up, I always had a sense that we might have the ability to score more tries than the Irish. And that's really what I felt. And in the end, we scored 4 tries to 1. So it was pretty comprehensive. But I think that, the adjudication was over the top. Was definitely, I think referees got to take control of the game. If there are people on the outside poking their nose into it and he's there and he's seen the action, he's got to make a ruling. And that's his judgment. And that's how you determine who should be referees for these big games. I mean, a lot of effort's gone into that. A lot of it's a commercial exercise within itself.
Yep.
And you want to have a great game of rugby for everyone to watch. Capacity crowd, great day, great city, great opportunity, and the All Black team trying to find their best, 15 or 20 players that fit together. There was lots of things at the start of what they're calling a Grand Slam tour. It was important that it was a good game. Now, I don't think it was a great game of rugby if you didn't understand the rules.
Agree. If
you understand the rules, you could see it was tense and intense. There's no doubt about it. But I was saying it to myself at one stage. In fact, I was in a room of people who were getting frustrated by half-time. And at half-time, everybody had a chat, and we realised that if the game carried on like that in the second half, it was anyone's game. Either team could win because there wasn't continuity like there normally is in the game of rugby. I think that's how you got to judge referees. But anyway, I've said my bit on that.
Sure. Well, let's start with the biggest call of the game, which happened in the first couple of minutes, and subsequent to the yellow card becoming a red card for Byrne. Beauden Barrett has come out and said that he's going to go into bat if he can as far as the judiciary goes. He didn't think it should be a red card. We have this debate way too often, don't we, at test match level, I suppose all levels of rugby mix. And I thought, I agree with Andy Farrell, and I've been a great advocate for this the whole time. If you are going to study these incidents and you're going to make a judgment on it and you're going to potentially change the whole test match by making a call, then you should be watching it only in real time. And I think the TMO has to watch it in real time. Life takes place in real time. The referee sees it in real time. The players are reacting in real time. Look at it in real time, then make your decision. Don't micro it, don't frame by frame it, because then, of course, it always looks a lot worse. I thought that was one of those ones where it was more accident than incident. And in the end, the only good thing that came out of it was the red card was only for 20 minutes. You imagine what a farce of a match that would have turned into after 2 minutes if that had been 14 against 15. That's all we'd be talking about right now.
Yeah, that's dead right. In fact, you'd have to, I think they were asked that question after the game, weren't they, in the post-game matches, whether the red card was serious as far as the result. And, it was hard to answer that any other way, because the Irish were ahead when the red card was issued, and they were ahead when the 15-man team was back on the field.
Yeah.
When the other player came back. So, it probably didn't affect the game, because the game in nature was stop-start. The only time the game flowed was in about the last 5 minutes, when the All Blacks had the ball predominantly, and they maintained it, I think 13 phases, I heard the commentator say at one stage. So, if the game had been able to flow, I think we would have seen our players better. But, we're under enormous pressure, because if you lose, Scott, you lose your captain who calls the lineouts after 2 minutes, and then, his brother 9 minutes later, he's off the field as well. So you lose your captaincy, your leadership, your lineout call, your combination between the 10 and 12 who have been playing all their life together since they were born. And all of a sudden you've got a new midfield back combination. There's a whole bunch of things that happened in that game that sort of made me feel nervous about the game. But at the end of the game, you'd have to say 4 tries to 1 was about the difference between the two teams. So, I think it augurs well for the future if we select the right players, and if everybody's available for selection. I think there's a few guys that won't be available for selection because of the injury time.
Clearly, yeah.
But anyway, it was a great victory in the end, and onwards and upwards.
Mix, I agree. And yesterday, we did a post-match straight afterwards, and you're always full of the emotion of it. And I was probably like the people that you're talking about in your room that you're watching it. It was frustrating. It was a frustrating game to watch. And it was also frustrating for me from a point of view of that's the 10th match we've played this year. And we still look so clunky at times. And why do we look so clunky when you expect these combinations to work? And I know we get injuries, but they train for these injuries. During practice, sometimes they'll just drag a player and say, right, you've been yellow carded or you're injured. Next guy off the rank has to come on, and you've got to still get that continuity and flow. We got it in the last 15 to 20 minutes, didn't we? And that was as good as the All Blacks have played probably in the last 2 years, that last 20 minutes. We can take a lot from that. But overall, I thought a great win, but not a great performance. And you've pointed out obviously that the nature of the stop-start nature of the game, which is always frustrating. But anytime you beat an opponent like that, what's more important? Is it the result, the score, the fact we go on from here, we've won that game, or is it you're looking at the totality of performance and saying, are we improving as a team?
It's the education of the players and the coaches. So we have got a lot of new players that don't realise that when you get to the Northern Hemisphere and you've got referees like the French, and let's face facts, French referees can be fickle at times. All referees can be fickle at times, but French referees, out of their own comfort zone. He looked nervous to me, and he was blowing his whistle a lot, and he was only too happy to hear a third party say this is what went wrong, and then he'd make a rule. I mean, he's got to take control. The referee's got to take control of those situations, and he's got to always be saying, the game should be winning.
Yeah, I'm in charge. I'm in charge. The game.
There's no referee in the world that's saying that, possibly, but he hasn't got a job if the game's not happening. I mean, he's got to be part of the crew. He's got to get on board and say, hey, we want this game to be a spectacle. There's a big introduction to the US market here. The next Rugby World Cup, well, one after next, is going to be in the USA. Let's educate them. Let's show them a great game of rugby, be part of the parcel. I'm not saying favour one team or another, and I'm not saying don't blow the whistle. I'm saying, be selective and take responsibility to allow the game to win. That's all really I've got to say on that. But, I think we learnt a lot, and I think some of the players learnt a lot. You'd have to say that we were quite calm under pressure in the second half, which I thought was, a credit to the team, because there were so many new players and new positions, and I thought they were disciplined, and it was really pleasing to see. Did we have rhythm and flow? No, we didn't have rhythm and flow until the last 10 minutes, but, we were behind. We were behind in that game, weren't we, for 3/4 of the match?
Yeah.
And in the end, 4 tries to 1, we walk away and say, well, that's actually about the way it should have been. So you can't complain much. And on to Murrayfield. Good ground, that one.
Yeah, great name for a rugby field. A couple of positions I want to talk about. So we lose Scott Barrett, and then we have this brand new locking combination of Holland and Lord. And when I say brand new, look, they may have played together. I don't know whether they played 20 minutes together, but those two guys and what they had to step up and actually do, because it's moments like that then you get the chance to almost not become a senior All Black, but you know what I mean though, don't you, Mex? All of a sudden you've got to take a lot of responsibility on board, and that's the job, that you're wearing a black jersey. It's almost not a coming of age, but it's on that same road, if you know what I mean.
In fact, I missed this, but I am delighted that Josh Lord got the opportunity to play. We now have 2 world-class, with the potential of being world-class locks, who are genuinely big. They are big men.
Yeah.
So they would match anything in the world as far as size and jumping ability. So Holland, his work rate lifted enormously in that game. I thought he took quite a lot of responsibility with Barrett not there. And I thought, the guy that came on, the Lord that took his place, he went really well. I think he won 2 line-outs against the throw. They weren't tidied up very well, one of them I remember. So it's great to have 2 big locks again. And when Vi comes back, they got to play him in the loose forwards.
Yeah,
he proved the point.
Saying
He's
that
good
earlier.
enough.
Yeah.
They've got to play him the blind side. We need another big loose forward. I mean, at the moment, I'm critical of too many short loose forwards, because there's disparity when you play teams like England, for example, who have got 2 jumpers in the loose forward trio, although at the moment there's a couple of, depends on the team that is announced, of course. And the same when you play South Africa. When you play South Africa, you got to have 4 people who've got the ability to win the ball in the air. If you haven't got the ball, you haven't got the ball, and we've got to have possession. Possession is so vital. Forget all the other stuff. It's a lot easier if you've got the ball, and so that's a great success. That's a great step forward with Lord
and Holland.
I think in Holland.
Yeah.
So I'm pleased to see that. Fantastic. And Lord, actually, for his first big game like that, he did pretty well, I thought. And there's more and more to come with him, I'm sure.
Loose forwards then, and that combination of Parker, Lakai, I thought he had a great game. Adi as always. And then Satiti came off the bench at a time when we started to gain control and had a lot of front foot ball, and he really showed what a class act that he is, and also the impact that he could make. And in actual fact, when you look at that bench, Mex, on came Lord. McKenzie made an impact. Lester Faionganuku, absolute impact that he made, and Satiti as well. So there was another pleasing aspect as well, because that's what, they call it impact now. They don't call it a bench. You need guys to come on and be able to stake that claim, don't you? So let's isolate that for a second. But the loose forwards especially, your area of expertise, how did you think that those 3 went?
Yeah, I thought they played well. Once again, the priority is ball possession. So you've got to have the ability to win the ball. So if you're a loose forward in the modern game of rugby, and you're not tall, and you're not aerial, you're not a ball that wins the ball from kickoff or lineouts, or disputed balls when they're in the air, those guys are absolutely vital. If that's not your priority, then you've got to make turnovers. And I think we saw that with Adi. Adi pulls off turnovers every game, and I think he got 2 vital ones yesterday. So you've got to win the ball. If you don't win it in the air, you've got to win it on the ground. And then it's the balance of how many loose forwards you've got who can contest an aerial possession and how many can contest on the ground. And the way it's going at the moment, everybody's got to be really good at that breakdown situation. In fact, it's been like that for a decade. So the whole 15 players have to be, really skilled at the breakdown. That first supporting player is vital. And then the second supporting player adds momentum to the first. I think that it depends on the opposition you play to. If you look at the loose forward trio, and if they've got two guys that are 2 metres tall in the loose forwards, they're obviously going to play a game where the ball's put in the air a bit, and they're going to back themselves to win your lineouts. We've got a lot of work to do in the lineouts. We've got the players there, I think, now, and especially when Vi comes back, because he's a lineout forward, and to be able to have 3 genuine lineout forwards in your forward pack is a real bonus. But I thought that Satiti played well when he came on, but he's always good when we've got the ball. I mean, that's what he does. He takes the ball up, and the number of times he was involved with the play was meritorious, without a doubt. So that's really good. If you'd had Karifi there, he probably would have been good in that last 20 minutes as well. And it's going to be really interesting to see who they announce, what the next team is to play Scotland. Yeah. And obviously Scotland are running on something bloody good at the moment. They've never been probably as strong as they are now in the global game, not as far as I can remember. So it's going to be a good game, and it's going to be a very interesting team that's going to be announced. Lakai, I thought he started well in the number 8 jersey. He's played more rugby at number 8 than he has at open side flanker, remember. He came up as a schoolboy, he was a number 8. So, and I thought he played really well. I saw he was standing out on the edge a lot in that game. It's hard watching television compared to being
obviously
there live.
Yep.
But he was good. I mean, he's not going to win any line-out ball for you or any ball in the air. But he's a support player, and Satiti's a support player too. They're actually quite similar, those two players. So, they will know, the selectors will know, they're closer to the action than we are watching it on television. But it'll be interesting to see who is named at number 8 in this next game.
First 5, Beauden Barrett or Damian McKenzie. Beauden Barrett seems to be stuck in this fug at the moment where he does some absolutely brilliant Beauden Barrett things, Max, and then he just does some things which you just think, my God, I mean, I wouldn't expect that from an NPC first 5. So what do we do with him at the moment? Do we continue to persevere with him, or is it time that Damian McKenzie got another crack at this, or does Ruben Love come into the equation? Or because this is Scotland at Murrayfield, with England to come, that it's a horses for courses selection, and the selectors do what they did with that Ireland selection, and they go, no, we're sticking with what we know because that's what we believe and trust in. I think it's going to be fascinating to actually see what they do, but what would you like them to do?
Yeah, well, I think that McKenzie played really well in the last game. Well, that's the best game I've seen him play, and he started. So he is a contender. I don't think Ruben Love is a contender. I don't think he's played at that level enough. He hasn't shown us that he should be there ahead of one of the best 10s in the world. And that's what we're saying. We're saying, hey, do we want to get rid of one of the best 10s in the world? And the answer to that is no, you don't. He took a few knocks, that guy. The Barrett boys were under the microscope.
Yeah, they were on the walls. Yeah, they were.
The weekend, the whole family was knocked around. And I wouldn't be, I don't know, but I remember being knocked around a bit myself, and being a bit sort of loose in the head and not playing as well as I would have normally played. And he took a few bangs. So I don't know how clear he was. He was good, wasn't he, that he didn't get called off the field to be analysed.
Well, is he meant to be? I don't get that. So, the guy's getting punished for hitting you in the head, but I agree with the people who are saying, why isn't that an instant HIA? If you've been smacked, surely that is 2 + 2, you would think it is, but it is, yeah.
Well, he didn't indicate the fact that he was concussed or had it's not even concussed really. It's a bang in the head that sometimes puts you off your absolute focus for the game, all of a sudden you've got a...
You're a bit light.
I called it a loose head. It's the wrong expression for sure. But sometimes you can be knocked and there's no concussion involved, but it puts you off your stride a bit if you like. And I think he wasn't at his best, Barrett. I think I'd give him a rest though. We're playing Scotland at Murrayfield. I think we can beat them with McKenzie at 10. The last game McKenzie played at 10, 2 games ago, was it? 3. He was really good.
That was in Perth, yeah.
He came on and he was an impact player and he played really well. So I'd be starting McKenzie. I'd give Bowden the break, but I wouldn't let Bowden go at all. Bowden's the man. And I hate it when I hear people in the media talking about the loose forward trio, which they know nothing about. And then I know nothing about number 10s.
Well, you know a little bit. You know, you're always close to that guy, Mix. I mean, he was one away. You knew who he was. He was right there. He's there, So
yeah,
you did introduce yourself to him.
We all have our personal ability to judge, don't we?
Always, yeah.
But it doesn't mean to say, that we're astute in that role.
You're right.
And I'm no means as astute as the All Black selectors are. When I'm watching on TV and they're there, seeing them at training and seeing them in the games, etc. So, you got to throw caution to the wind a little bit and say, give the selectors some space to do what they think is best. And they've got space to do that. Now that they've got rid of about 3 or 4 players that they've been selectors that they would have had to been including in the group, I think that we'll see what these 3 selectors are all about on this tour. And so far, when I saw the team that was announced to play at Soldier Field, I thought, this is an indication that these guys are onto it, can see what's happening. So I think because he got knocked around a bit, and we're playing Scotland at Murrayfield, and McKenzie played a good game last time, and he played well when he came on. He's been in the team for a long time. He's played a lot of rugby. I'd be playing him. I'd be giving Bowden a break for no reason at all apart from giving him a break and giving McKenzie a go. Sometimes there is a signal, and there's a signal there.
Okay.
So that's an interesting one. But the more interesting one, equally as interesting, is the midfield backs.
Yeah. I mean, so now what?
It's enormous now.
Yeah, it is, because
all of a sudden we've got 4, haven't we?
We've
got 4 that we can play.
If Geordie doesn't play, and I don't know what the diagnosis is. When we're recording this, we don't know. It looked like ligament damage, but you don't know. If he plays, if he's fit, he plays. If he doesn't, we've got Tupaia and Leicester, but I think they might swap them around because Tupaia's more of a natural 12 and play Leicester at 13. Is that
they did that anyway?
Yeah, is that the combination? Yeah, because that seems to fit. I know Quinn Tupaia's in the team at 13, but he's a natural 12, and so. Look, Leicester Whanganuku.
No, I don't think he is in the team at 13.
Well, they selected him outside Geordie Barrett in that test, didn't they?
I think he could be in the team at 12. But I think that Whanganuku's a centre as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's known as a centre. Proctor's a centre, a specialist centre.
Yeah, well, what happens to him? I mean, he seems to have been left out now.
Don't forget about Leonard Brown.
Well,
Leonard Brown is a very, very good player. They say he plays both positions. Personally, in my view, he can play both, but he's probably his number 1 position is 12. So they have to make a decision between Leonard Brown at 12, Tupaia at 12, and 13 between Whanganuku and Proctor. So there's a decision to be made with 2 great options in both positions. Isn't that wonderful?
A huge thank you to Novus Glass for sponsoring this episode of the DSPN and for being a proud partner of the Special Olympics NZ. This December, over 1,200 incredible athletes along with hundreds of volunteers, coaches and other support staff will be making their way to Christchurch for the Special Olympics NZ 2025 National Summer Games. Novus Glass is proud to be supporting something special, and you can help too by supporting the athletes if you text Novus to 3598. That's NOVUS 3598. Thanks again, Novus Glass, for supporting the DSPN. Windscreen crack or chip? Notice it? Novus it.
This is the DSPN.